From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The fight against food waste by helping others.
Right, and I think a lot of people don't know the statistic that 1 in 3 college students are actually food insecure.
We head to Tennessee where students and staff are working to help their own. There's a new big player in the dairy business.
I'm Michelle Rook. South Dakota continues to lead the nation in growth in the dairy industry.
As planting finally comes to an end, high heat moves in and wheat harvest rolls.
People are more excited about reporting proteins than they are yields.
How a change in forecast triggered a sell-off right now on AgDay. Good morning on this first full day of summer. Farmers have finally put the wraps on spring planting. The latest crop progress report from USDA shifting to crop conditions after this week. Corn crop condition down slightly with 70% of the crop rated good to excellent. That's down 2% from last week. Soybean planting crossing the finish line with 94% of the crop now in the ground. That's 1% ahead of the 5-year average. And 68% of the crop is rated good to excellent. That's also down 2 points from last week. And winter wheat harvest, it's running slightly ahead of average at 25% harvested. The 5-year average is 22%. Checking in on Oklahoma, where harvest was slowed a bit by rain and humid conditions, now running full force. And the heat actually helping things out.
The heat coming in has helped us finish off those tillers quickly, basically terminate them so we can get in. Allowed guys to get in with the sprayers and terminate some of the stuff. We are having problems with flush because we got thin stands and we got moisture. Now we have a massive weed flush we're working against. Oklahoma further south hasn't been that bad, but the further you travel into Kansas, I know they're fighting more of a weed pressure. So it's helping harvest dry along.
Brian says harvest reports are marginal for wheat. He says yields for his own crop are running 50 to 60% of what he would expect on an average harvest year. Now he says the corn is really taking off as well in these hotter conditions, but adds areas in high heat and no humidity are starting to deal with drought stress. Happening right now, hot, dry weather in the Corn Belt is starting to cut into topsoil moisture. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us. Matt, summer is starting really hot.
Yes, it is, Clinton. We've seen hot and humid conditions over much of the center and southeastern part of the United States, and you can see that again as we head through today. Temperatures topping out in the 90s and triple digits as we head through this afternoon. And then even as we head into early tomorrow morning, that humidity down in the south and right through the middle of the country is going to keep those low temperatures in the 70s and even 80s before another very hot and steamy day as we head through tomorrow, with temperatures again in the 90s all the way up into the Dakotas and northern portions of the Corn Belt there as well. And if we take a look at the drought monitor, this is something that's going to be talked about a lot over the next week or two. A lot of dry conditions through the Corn Belt and back into the Great Lakes, and you don't see much there in the way of drought as we head through now, but we could be looking at some drought development there in the area that I've highlighted, all the way from Lake Michigan, parts of Wisconsin and Michigan, all the way down into the Mid-South. And this is why we're not looking at a whole lot of rainfall in that general area. So maybe a lot more out into parts of the southern Rockies, up in the northern part of the Midwest, but not right there in the middle of the country where we've had so much. So that's something that we're going to keep an eye on. And lots of kids helping out on the farm during their summer break. Gavin Kenny of Central Nebraska sharing this photo of his 2 little girls admiring Dad's cows and calves on a beautiful Nebraska evening. Very cute. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
All right, thanks, Matt. Weather, part of the driver in the grain markets on Tuesday, with all 3, corn, soybeans, and wheat, trading lower. December corn fell to a 2-week low from a continued slide in wheat. Soybean futures falling to near 3-week lows, all on the prospects for relief from the heat in the Midwest.
Coming out of the 3-day weekend, the maps are bringing a better chance of cooler temperatures, especially in the 6 to 10 day time period. The market does seem to be focusing in on that. I don't think it's all completely bearish though, folks, simply because there isn't a lot of rain in with these cooler temps. Actually, the models are projecting a little bit below normal rainfall for the Midwest. As we go into 8 to 14 day portion of the map, some of these maps are trying to bring the heat a little back into the Midwest and keeping the Ohio River Valley a little bit dry.
Jim says he'll also be watching to see what the U.S. dollar does, as it is currently trading a little bit weaker, which could bring lower prices for grains, and whether that will impact demand from world buyers. We've been keeping you updated on this. Russian blockades of key Ukrainian ports have trapped millions of tons of grain inside the country. Weeks of negotiations on safe corridors to get the grain out of Ukraine's Black Sea ports have made little progress, and the situation is growing urgent as the summer harvest season arrives. Ukraine's president recognizing the work of the country's farmers while providing status updates on the war.
Хочу подякувати сьогодні нашим фермерам, тим, хто обороняв свої громади, навіть голіруч, коли зупиняв російських військових, хто попри війну забезпечив посівну кампанію, тим, хто навіть кого призвали тракторними військами, коли вони забирали російську трофейну техніку з поля бою. І зараз, коли
Now, the UN says the overall impact of Russia's war is putting 49 million people worldwide at risk of famine. And some of that potential world buying could come as a result of countries unable to get grains out of Ukraine. The European Union foreign ministers meeting this week to discuss the looming food crisis caused by the war in that country. When you think of leading dairy production states, Wisconsin may be the first to come to mind. However, in 2021, USDA reported the state with the largest milk production growth by percentage in the nation was South Dakota. AgDay's Michelle Rook takes us there to find out what their secret is.
Many out-of-state dairies have relocated here to South Dakota over the last several years, including Golden Dakota Farms near Elkton. The group bought the dairy in 2015, which today has grown to 3,400 milk cows.
I've been here for 7 years now and really love the area.
Donovan Coetzee originally started dairying in South Africa, then moved to California before finding the appeal of South Dakota.
Well, I'm from South Africa and water's scarce, and I guess you can say the same for California. And just for the large abundance of water that's in this area, it kind of drew us to this region. And historically, the milk price is pretty good with some low feed cost and all of our good quality feed coming right from our backyard. This area kind of really stuck out to us.
And he's not alone, as the state has attracted dairies from all over the country and even overseas.
Many of the, I say earlier dairy farmers, but now they've been here 15, 20 years, were Europeans that crossed and were attracted. And we still have that potential in the future too.
That's because the state's dairy industry made the decision many years ago to recruit those operations. And the state helped out by providing a business-friendly climate.
We went from, 15 years ago we weren't on the map to everyone talking about us. And dairy's it's a very capital intensive big industry, but it's a small world when it comes to dairymen and the people involved. And they know where we're at. They like the way we work with them and we do business with them. And I think it's just bright things happening in the dairy industry, and it's going to continue to happen in South Dakota.
Plus, the I-29 corridor has a great milk processing infrastructure that has continued to expand in tandem.
Just recently, Valley Queen made an announcement of another $195 million expansion, so that will take about the equivalent of 30 to 35,000 cows. And so that will kind of do a nice job kind of keeping the growth curve at a steady, balanced point, and seeing it exciting to see it move forward.
However, there are still dairy producers that have permits that are awaiting additional capacity.
I think a lot of producers might say that we need some more processing, but I know that's coming along nicely, and we've had some expansions, and I know there's been talk of maybe another plant or so, maybe coming up in the near future or 5 years down the line or so.
And the state and dairy producers have been actively involved in those recruitment efforts as well to keep that growth curve for the future. In South Dakota, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Another step in the long battle over Bayer's Roundup weed killer as the U.S. Supreme Court denies the company's appeal of a lower court decision. Germany-based Bayer AG asking the Supreme Court to review a $25 million verdict in favor of a California man who says Roundup causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, adding that it shouldn't be penalized for a product determined to be safe by EPA. Now, the company says it respectfully disagrees with this decision, and it says it remains fully committed to the availability of glyphosate-based ag and professional products. Reuters reporting the justices have a second petition pending on a related issue that they could act upon in the coming weeks. Coming up, the wild market ride of the growing season. We'll discuss what to do about sales next and later, preventing food waste while preventing hunger. How the University of Tennessee is starting with a focus on its students in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
It's been a turbulent few weeks for grain markets. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with a look at new crop pricing strategies as the growing season wears on.
Joining us with market analysis, Total Farm Marketing's Brian Doherty. Brian, as we look at new crop corn futures, obviously a lot of people are looking at the weather, high pressure ridge, thinking, boy, this market is just going to keep going higher. How do you get a defensive posture here with that in mind?
Well, that's a great question because we're at a time of the year where the market can flip over quickly, and it can be just, I call it wickedly unforgiving. Once it starts down, it can just sell off, and then all of a sudden you're left with a lot of emotional decisions of what you could have done or should have done. So how do you treat a market defensively that has all of these potential variables that could send prices higher and maybe much higher to levels never seen historically as we deal with tight world inventories? I think you do that through a couple of methods. The first method is look at the put option market that when you purchase a put that establishes a price floor. And so you want to do those when typically the market's working higher, the puts become a little cheaper. So that's one idea. Okay. Another idea would be, hey, let's look at your crop. If it looks good, you got a good stand, forward sell it, and then retain the ownership through a call option or bull call spread. So that would be strategy number 2 to employ. And a third would be just make cash sales to a point where you're comfortable, but don't oversell into the cash just yet. It still is only June. There's a lot of weather market ahead of us.
Thanks as much as well for your analysis today. That is Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing. You can hear more at agweb.com. More AgDay coming up.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779. It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us, taking a look at the map here. And really, I think that kind of just says it all. It's just hot and humid.
Oh, yeah, and it's been that way over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to continue to see a big ridge over the U.S., and it's going to keep that heat right in place as we head through the next couple of weeks. And the ridge across the center of the country has looked much of the same over the past couple of weeks. And again, it is going to be hot and humid, not only as we head through this week, but this right here is the jet stream on Saturday. Still looking at a lot of heat across the southwest, even up into the Pacific Northwest, right through the center of the country and into the east. Could see a few more chances of rain, though. A little dip in that jet stream up into southern parts of Canada, so something that we'll keep an eye on. But temperatures as we head through this afternoon are going to be extremely warm. Temperatures closing in on the triple digits or just over, with a higher humidity there in the southeast along the Gulf Coast. And that humidity, you can really see it because that will keep temperatures in the 70s and closer to 80 degrees. Parts of Texas on to the south and east, even into parts of Florida with some of that higher humidity. But then even as we head into tomorrow afternoon, still seeing 90s, triple digits, even not only down into the south, but right on up into really the northern plain states there. Bismarck, 95, 93 in Minneapolis. So extremely warm temperatures there. And again, hot there in the southwest as well. Now we do have a chance for a couple of stronger storms as we head through Wednesday. An isolated tornado, some damaging wind gusts, a few heavier downpours, and some small pockets of some isolated hail are possible. Southern parts of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then moving eastward through the mid-Atlantic states, including Pennsylvania and into upstate New York as well. So that's an area to kind of keep an eye on as we head through today. And that's because we're going to have a cold front kind of sagging down to the south, and along that cold front or just ahead of it, that's where we're going to see that chance for some storms with a low spinning off the east and an upper low back there in the Central Plains that'll bring in some shower activity to some parts of the area where we really need it, parts of the country there, and back to the Four Corners region. But then not a lot going on. High pressure creating some shower chances, and other than that, we're not looking at a whole lot of rain, especially right in this area, and that's where we're going to be watching for drought to potentially develop over the next week or two. And we'll keep you updated on that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Caribou, Maine, mostly sunny and mild, a high of 69 degrees. Huntsville, Alabama, sunny and hot, a high near 98. And more sunshine back in Douglas, Wyoming, sunny and warm, a high near 88.
The government is supporting the National Pork Producers Council and the American Farm Bureau Federation in the challenge over California's Proposition 12. MPPC and AFBF have petitioned the Supreme Court to consider the constitutionality of the animal housing law, critics arguing that the law imposes regulations that reach far outside its borders and stifles interstate and international commerce. The U.S. Solicitor General saying in a brief that California, quote, has no legitimate interest in protecting the welfare of animals located outside the state, adding, quote, voters in pork-producing states must determine what constitutes cruel treatment of animals housed in those states, not voters in California. Now, she urged the High Court to reverse the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals decision to dismiss the challenge by ag groups and remand the case to the appeals court. The Proposition 12 case is scheduled to be heard on October 11th. China's pork imports plunged in May. New numbers show China imported 130,000 metric tons of pork last month. That's down more than 7% from April. Through the first 5 months of this year, China's pork imports came in at 680,000 metric tons. That's a drop of more than 65% compared with the same period last year. Beijing's demand for pork, well, it soared in 2019 due to that massive outbreak of African swine fever. But since 2021, the country saw an increase in its own inventory in pork production. Millions of people worldwide are facing food shortages and hunger. Up next, we'll see how one Tennessee program is combating that reality through generosity.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
In the U.S., it's staggering to learn how much food we waste, especially given how many people are struggling with hunger. And as Charles Denny reports, the University of Tennessee Extension and Tennessee 4-H are looking to combat food waste through generosity.
A collection of items that might have otherwise stayed on a shelf or crammed away in a cabinet unused. The Tennessee State 4-H office on the Knoxville Ag campus was one of several drop-off sites during Food Waste Awareness Week. 4-H teamed with UT Extension Family and Consumer Sciences to raise awareness of the issue and collect food for people who need it. Collegiate 4-H'er Caroline Brooks helped gather canned goods.
Right, and I think a lot of people don't know the statistic that 1 in 3 college students are actually food insecure, and so that was a great opportunity for us to help our fellow college students.
The USDA estimates 1/3 of the food available in the U.S. is never eaten. We waste food by cooking too much, leaving it on our plate, and then sending it to a landfill, or by letting some perishable items perish. We also have plenty of cans that are never opened.
The USDA reports the average family of 4 in America spends about $1,500 a year on food they never eat. Another goal here is to help families learn to save money through better meal planning.
There are instances where we are wasting food and there's good, nourishing food that's not being used. It's going to a landfill. While on the other hand, there are a lot of individuals and families who don't have enough food to lead an active and healthy lifestyle.
Kristen Johnson with UT Extension encourages families to grocery shop smartly, get only what you need, and if you have some left over, maybe even perishables, find a place to donate. And that's what happened with the items collected on the Ag campus and around Knoxville. The food was delivered to UTK campus charity Smokey's Pantry. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles, and that's all of our time this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.